In this session, we're going to take a look at using Infuse software for blending multiple exposures in order to reduce the high contrast range, which can be a particular problem when shooting interiors. And a lot of real estate photographers use it as a way of covering a property without even having to break open a flash. And it can certainly be used in that way as a very convenient time-saving device. So why is this video actually suggesting that you include a small amount of fill flash in your bracketed shots? Well, I hope to show you that this small and not too time-consuming addition of a little bit of flash to each bracket can actually work really well in combination with Infuse. And it results in images which are not only crisper and with a bit more sparkle, but actually a better tonal range throughout the whole picture, from the darkest darks to the lightest lights, than a straight blend of ambient-only exposures. So let's kick off with a real-world example, this rather sparsely furnished apartment, which I hope nonetheless will demonstrate the differences quite well. And this is the ambient-only infused shot, which is created from a series of bracketed exposures, kicking off with a very overexposed one, which helps to breathe a bit of life into this poorly illuminated foreground area here. But of course, because I've got these skylights, they're illuminating the floorboards, very reflective floorboards, and we're getting some screaming highlights here. So the successive brackets, of course, become more and more underexposed, keeping the aperture consistent at f11, but going down in full stop increments using the shutter speed facility, so that I wind up with a shot that actually contains an acceptable amount of detail in those floorboards. So that's the task set to Infuse, to get detail from the shadowy area here right through to the highlight area here, and that is our result, and that's with no further post carried out after the Infuse process, and I think it's done pretty well. It's not perfect. If we go to this area, the highlight is obviously there, but there is some textural detail and there's a certain amount of shadow fill gone on. It's not a bad result. But what I really want to show you is what happens when you bring a certain amount of fill flash into the mix, because the infused result is this picture. And if you compare it with the ambient only blended shot, which is done pretty well, the tonal range is far better in the shot which has had a little bit of fill flash added to the mix. We'll look at those differences in more detail later on, but I just want to show you how this shot was produced. I've run my sequence of bracketed shots for the ambient light, but in each case I've fired a bit of flash, and I've got one unit to the one side of the camera bounced into a silver umbrella which has illuminated the foreground, or helped to illuminate the foreground. And you'll notice these conflicting shadows that are cast by the table legs. That's because in this very underexposed shot, the flash is actually the dominant light source. And I should say that I've also used a flash in the kitchen area, perched up on one of these units. That's helped to bring some light into the unlit side of these units as well. But for most shots where you're shooting towards a window, for example, a living room, you could get away with one flash behind you, just illuminating this foreground. So continue with the bracketed sequence, opening up the shutter speed for the ambient light, and allow the flash in each case to go on firing. So when you come to run the blend in Infuse, this series of bracketed exposures actually makes life considerably easier for Infuse, and you get this really nice tonally informative result, which in comparison with the other shot where we've just gone with the ambient light, I think really has the edge. Let's look at that rather difficult area on the floorboards that was really brightly illuminated in the ambient only shot. It's pretty blocky, the tonal progression there, versus the flash shot, which is really nice and smooth. Shows a bit of sparkle in the floorboards, but there is texture here. I could brush away at this area with a negative highlight adjustment in Lightroom, for example, but all I'd really do is take those really blitzed areas down to a sort of dull grey. If we move over to the shadow department, looking at that area just underneath the table and the bench, again in the ambient shot, it's getting pretty dark. It's acceptable, but I really prefer what's going on in the flash assisted shot. I think the rendition on the wall is nicer. I also think this area, if you notice the shadow areas above these cabinets, quite harsh in the ambient shot. With a flash shot, nice and gentle fill that's gone on there. Really, really helpful. Again, you could come in and make a local adjustment on this shot, brush carefully around this, and that's all time. With this shot, where I just added a single flash behind me for this foreground area, it's just helped to lift those shadows by virtue of the flash. So for my preference, okay, it was a little bit more work. I would far rather that shot that contains nice rich tonal information. So let's take a slightly prettier picture here of this kitchen with this very dark light absorbent wood and see whether the flash assisted infuse method can improve matters versus the straight ambient blend. So here are my ambient only brackets in stop gaps, and that is what infuse did on its own. It's not bad, it's pretty good. I'm going in close here on the woodwork and these dark shadow areas. Pretty good, pretty good. I sometimes separate my brackets with this rather obvious signal that just helps me when I'm batch processing to know that there's a break and I'm trying something different. Put my hand in front of the lens. So the next series is pulling in the flash. All I've got going on here is an umbrella behind me, and I did fire 2 units into the umbrella. It was a really dark kitchen. So a couple of units firing into one umbrella, running my blend or my series of bracketed exposures in 1-stop intervals, and this is the infuse result. And I can tell you that when I blow this up to an A3 print, there is way superior separation in these dark shadow values. I'm gonna create, or I have created, a couple of JPEG files that are screen resolution which will help to show this better. So these shots are straight out of Infuse, no post-production's gone on at all. Flash assisted version on the left, ambient on the right, and let's take a look at that wood grain for starters. And this shot, please take it from me, is way sharper and better separated in the shadow areas on that wood grain. It really does make a difference, this, because what's happening is that the shadow or the unlit areas of the picture are receiving far greater bit depth because you've added a bit of fill flash over them. You're getting this rather sort of mulchy, noisy area in the shadows when you don't use the fill flash, but when you do, they're just lifted and given a bit of sparkle, a bit of separation. And this really makes a difference when you're talking in large pictures, or even when you supply pictures to a client high res and they open them up one-to-one on their computer. They really are going to see a difference in quality on these flash assisted versions. Let's look at these objects in the cupboard up here. This is the ambient only version, whereas the flash one, the objects are just somehow better separated from the background. There's a bit more sparkle that's gone on here. I really find this a more satisfying image, and it's definitely the one that I would submit to the client. And that's all thanks to just adding a little bit of bounce flash at the time of shooting. So I hope that's gone a little way towards pleading the case for using a bit of fill flash in combination with Infuse. It all depends really on what level of output you're looking for. Infuse on its own is a great bit of software. You can shoot a property without flash and get away with it in many cases. But if you do add it, it really can make the difference and take your work up to the next level.